All over the world, doctors were as baffled as the press. They named it sleepy sickness after its commonest symptom, a trance-like state which often overcame its victims for years. In Switzerland, a bride fell asleep at the altar. In France, not even childbirth could rouse one mother.
There was a mysterious disease that put shackles over millions of people, then it mysteriously disappeared, but not without leaving thousands of people in a state which resembles a living statues. It all started happening in the time of great turmoil, 1916. It was a time of World War I and a terrible disease, Spanish flu. Seriously, the time to be alive was pretty bad. I even made a video about the worst year to be alive, even though, spoilers alert, 1916 still ain't the worst year somehow. Anyway, problems seem to go together, and since the World War I was happening, perhaps this strange disease was spread by the movement of troops across the Europe. Also, it seems that this strange sleeping disease is a recurring event during the history, but there's not much of evidence to prove it. Allegedly, it could have been something else, but similar symptoms had happened in 1580, 1673, 1712 and 18th century multiple times. Let's dissect this disease into 3 stages. First stage would start quite innocently, a simple sore throat would appear, then flu-like symptoms would manifest. Around a third of encephalitis lethargica sufferers died during this acute phase, usually of respiratory failure. It is estimated that the mortality rate of it was 20%, which is close to 500,000 people. So okay, you survived this seemingly bad case of flu, you are happy. But then, second stage appears out of nowhere. The second phase was marked by a general loss of concentration and interest in life, giving a vague sensation that the patient was not the person they had once been. The patients would slowly become extremely lethargic or sleepy. Some patients were stricken so suddenly that they seemed to lose consciousness while in the midst of eating with food still in their mouths. Younger patients would often experience personality changes. Some would get antisocial, some would get hyperactive, and some super aggressive. In an infamous case, 8-year-old girl removed all her teeth and both of her eyes. But this stage still isn't the worst. A third stage would be a final nail in the coffin. It would strike 1 year or even 10 years later. Patients would slowly lose their ability to move and would end up with the infamous physical state of looking like a living puppet or a statue, just sitting there, looking into a single dot, neither speaking or moving or doing anything at all. Even though they were alive inside, they had no willpower to do anything. Keep in mind that some patients were in such state for more than 40 years. Some patients had a stranger puppet state. They sometimes could suddenly move or react to something specific. For example, doctors would throw a ball and the patient would catch it. This disease is called encephalitis lethargica. Encephalitis means inflammation of the brain. Something strange in the 1920s caused people's immune system to fight the infection by swelling. And you don't want too much swelling in the brain area. When that happens, the brain gets damaged. This is what happened during sleeping sickness. But there is one problem. Even till this day, scientists are not sure what caused this. This sickness simply disappeared as fast as it appeared. So what the hell is happening? There were many autopsies done, and when those unfortunate patient brains were examined, they were found to have discolorations, various lesions or wounds, which is a telltale sign of previous infection. These wounds possibly destroyed a part of brain which secretes hypocretin, also known as this thing which keeps us awake. Even though this strange epidemic went away, it doesn't mean it is completely gone. Encephalitis lethargica can happen from various reasons, viruses, bacteria, or various neurotoxins. We just don't know what caused it on such massive scale back in the day. There was a strange case recently in a small town of Kazakhstan. Around 150 people felt that their energy was sapped. Some even went to sleep and woke up after many days. But scientists had few theories. One of those was carbon monoxide poisoning from a flooded Soviet-era uranium mine. People were evacuated and seemingly returned to normal. That's not the case with encephalitis lethargica though. It stays. Today we have some ways to treat such illness, but back in 60s there wasn't much of option. By the way, in 1960s some hospitals had those poor patients from 1920s, which means that they were hospitalized for more than 40 years, stuck in this statue-like state for that long. One doctor, Oliver Sacks, noticed that the new drug at the time called L-Dopa worked quite well with Parkinson's patients, so he wondered, what would happen if he would administer it to the lethargica patients? And what do you know? It worked. It was like seeing dead wake up from deep slumber. Some started not only moving, but also walking again, talking, singing and dancing. Just being the way they were before the illness. But this drug came with side effects like uncontrollable shaking or mood swings. A patient by the name of Leonard first responded very positively to the drug and felt happy that he could move again, but later he began developing side effects and became paranoid and developed severe tics, eventually refusing L-Dopa and regressing to his earlier catatonic state. Yes, sadly, this miracle drug didn't work forever. Slowly it was losing its power after repeated use, and instead of awakening patients, it started giving them side effects. I think it's sad and tragic how you can get this chance to be yourself again, and then you know that it's inevitable. You will have to go back into that horrible sleeping state. On the other hand, most of the patients really appreciated the chance, even if it was short-lived. There is a good 1990s movie called Awakenings, based on Oliver Sacks' story. Even though causes of encephalitis lethargica are still unknown, there are theories. For example, it is believed that Spanish flu had something to do with this, but by examining antibodies made during influenza, it seems that it's not the case, even though it conveniently started happening during the Spanish flu. In the 1940s, there was huge forces thrown at finding the culprit. Scientists injected various tissue samples and fluids from the patients into the animals to cultivate the strain, and they still had no clue. One doctor just said, it's probably a known virus. Another doctor suggested that it was a weird form of herpes, which definitely is not scary since only 3.7 billion people currently have it. Another theory is that some people may have some sort of autoimmune disorder, which means that your own body is attacking itself. Today, encephalitis lethargica cases are extremely rare. Without another encephalitis lethargica epidemic, we, unfortunately or fortunately, may never learn the secret behind such strange event.